But I think you have to welcome the position she's now adopting, and that she is trying to reach out to various groups that in many ways have been alienated from some type of unionism that the DUP has promoted in the past. I think she is the leader of the largest unionist party, but what we're maybe going to see over the next while is whether she is actually the leader of unionism. And I think the challenge is for her to move to a position where she starts to promote a Northern Ireland for all, a place where everybody feels that this is their home and they feel part of and respected. And I think that these efforts that she's making at this moment in time are to be welcomed and show a clear change of direction, but has to be followed through. And I think that's the next step for her to actually, while talking a good game, she also has to start showing that she actually means it.
So how do you judge the success or otherwise of her strategy here? We don't know whether she's going to go to that Fermanagh game on Sunday or not. I suppose if she does or she doesn't, that'll speak for itself. In terms of going to that LGBT event at Stormont next week, Philip Logan's made it very clear the DUP's position on same-sex marriage isn't going to change. But at the same time, members of that community want to hear something more than that. They want the past hurts actually dealt with.
No, and I think we all look back in the history of how that section of our society were treated in the past, and it's a shame on our whole society. So it's not just for Arlene to address. I think it's for wider society to look back on the terrible wrongs of the past and the way that part of our society were treated, as I said, and actually apologise. And I think that can come from a number of sources. But I think that the challenge is, how does she then deliver on some of those issues that she's now looking at? And in some ways, what we have at the minute is a politics that unfortunately has gone backwards. And if we're looking to see how we can move it forward again, what we reached in 1998 was an agreement. It was a new Ireland. If we worked it properly, it would settle relationships down across this island and between these islands, and a place where everybody could do well. And what we've had now is a number of issues being used to actually hold our politics back for whatever reason. And the petition of concern in particular has been used to block issues that it wasn't meant to block in the first instance. And so maybe as we look to move our politics forward, which is the challenge that I think most people here would like to see met, it is about the DUP dropping the petition of concern for these social issues.
Okay.
And then bringing everything back onto the Assembly forum, and there let the debate take place and normal politics work its way through. Put it onto the Assembly forum. Drop the petition of concern for these issues and debate it. Produce the legislation, let people talk about it, let people take their positions on it, and then put it to the vote in the Assembly.
It's an academic point, of course, at the minute, Trevor, because we don't have an Assembly.
I know that, but that's the way to free up the Assembly again, is drop the petition of concern on these issues and put everything back into the Assembly's forum, which is where these issues should be, not in some sort of negotiation to get you back in, but get politics up and running. Because
I want to move this on to a wider issue about social conservatism within society and within unionism, I suppose, but also within nationalism in just a moment or two, if you don't mind. The former deputy leader of the Ulster Unionist Party, John McAllister, wrote a very interesting piece in the newsletter last year whenever he set out his strong commitment to the union, but he said he had to vote alliance in that election because of the policies of the Ulster Unionist Party candidates in his constituency on social issues. Now, there has to, Trevor, be a problem when a former deputy leader of a party you used to be a member of is prepared to say that openly. That's a problem for unionism generally, first of all, isn't it?
I think it's a problem for unionism. I think unionism, it needs to sort of sit back and have a hard look at itself and say, where is it going? I think, we have the agreement in 1998. It's whether the constitutional position remains the same or changes as to the consent principle. But what that did was create a battle for hearts and minds. It created that you had to come up with a better argument for what you're promoting in respect of your constitutional preference than what others are promoting. And the last thing you want to do is alienate people from your particular constitutional preference. And unionism, the only group that have got relationships more wrong than unionism is probably nationalism. If you're trying to unite Ireland, you probably couldn't go about it in a worse way. But unionism in itself It's about making a Northern Ireland for all. It's about creating a space here where everybody feels valued, everybody feels welcome. Great relations, not just good relations, but great relations across the island and across these islands. And what we need is a leadership that starts to actually grasp the future, shape that future differently.
So does social conservatism hold that back? That's my question.
Yes, social conservatism does hold it back. It does hold it back. But it's an understandable position for some people, but it shouldn't be a defining position for the rest of unionism, because unionism is a very broad church.
Right. Hey, Trevor?
I think the point I was going to make is I think we have to look at where we were in the past and look at the opportunity now we have to create a different future. And what we expect from our politicians now is to show a sense of maturity. And I understand all the difficulties with dealing with Sinn Féin. My father was a police officer, and I do understand that. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have manners and civility. And when I first met Martin McGuinness, my words to him, and I said to my wife, how am I going to deal with this? And I went up to him and I took his hand, I shook his hand, and I said, look, I disagree with what you did in the past, but if you're prepared to work constructively for the benefit of all the people, I'll work with you in the future. And I don't accept they were right or justified in any way what they did in the past. But we expect a maturity from our politicians, because even on these social issues, the problem with these social issues is they're holding back the problems with our hospitals, they're holding back problems with our education system, our economy, decisions being taken that impact on people's daily lives. And so we need to find a way to get through the blockage of these social issues so we can get a government back to deal with these other issues that are so important in other ways to people.